Hello. Thank you for joining Morning Conversations with OR Manager. All of us at OR Manager have felt very connected to all of you who've been receiving our updates and our latest information about how the pandemic is affecting healthcare. And it's been pretty wonderful to feel so connected to this community. And we wanted to thank you for continuing to be a part of it at this time. Today, I am so excited to get to introduce you to our guest. His name is Jake Poore, and he is the President and Chief Experience Officer at Integrated Loyalty System. Jake will also be our keynote speaker at the OR Manager Conference this fall. Jake is an expert on the human aspect of what practitioners do every day as OR managers and the important role this plays in providing the best possible patient care. So Jake has developed methods to bridge the gap between clinical and service excellence. I won't try to describe them. We'll let Jake do that. But let me introduce Jake Poore. Welcome, Jake.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
We're so happy to have you on.
I'm happy to be here as well. Thank you.
How are you? And tell us a little this morning.
Well, it's unprecedented. For those of us who work full-time in healthcare, healthcare has been going through a lot. We're in the grips of a world pandemic that doesn't seem to be letting up, stalling a little bit, but not letting up. And then, of course, we've got social and racial unrest with the murder on Monday of an African-American gentleman, George Floyd. So things are heating up, and my heart goes out to those working in healthcare because they've got enough going on without all this other stuff. But you know what? It's unprecedented, but it's healthy conversations, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think it's important for us to understand the current emotional state of healthcare, so that we can just acknowledge it. But what I think we're interested in is, getting a sense of your insights and your lens and how you view this, because you have this fantastic method and approach to helping us shine a light on, the human aspect of getting through these tough times. And I think it's so important for people to first understand a little bit about that perspective you have and what's so unique about it. And I thought you could tell us a little bit about your professional trajectory and how you got here.
Sure. The trajectory is kind of written for books and movies, I guess. I was lucky. This is, I guess, my golden year. I spent 18 years at the happiest place on earth in Orlando, Florida, called Walt Disney World. And I had a great career there. And then I took that 18 years and I've been applying it this past 18 years in healthcare because it's my love and it's my mission. In my 18 years at Disney, I started in film and television, merchandise, operations. I had an illustrious career because I got to work at Disney University as faculty, teaching orientation programs and leadership development programs. I got to launch some new businesses for Disney. We actually took a negative stereotype industry like timeshare and try to humanize it and add some Disney flair to it. And then my last project was, the last 6 years of my career was working at the Disney Institute. So if the Disney University was for training for employees or cast members, as we called them, the Disney Institute, we were going to sell those blueprints, those cultural blueprints to the world. And I was lucky enough because I led the healthcare division, and we got 80% of the folks who came to the Disney Institute were from healthcare, and I just fell in love with healthcare. And that's why I left, quite frankly, is I fell so much in love with it, I wanted to do that the rest of my career. So my last day at Disney was a couple days after 9/11. On 9/11, I was at Eisenhower Medical Center in Palm Springs, California. When the second plane hit the Twin Towers, I was at the hospital doing a cultural assessment. And I knew full well that the world was going to change and Disney was going to change. And I sat down, wrote my resignation, and started a new company, the company you see behind me here, with a physician friend of mine. And we wanted to humanize healthcare. And that's what we've been doing for the last 18 years. And you'll see me do that till the rest of my life.
We are so lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you. And
I think, a lot of people are struck by that perspective and what you bring to us and the practitioners. And so, there's so many methods and tools that you're helping provide to us. And I thought you could talk a little bit about the evolution of how you came up with some of the methods, and maybe talk a little bit about the Care Out Loud method,
Sure.
human business, human tool to help us understand?
Sure. Well, first of all, let's get some perspective. We were not a small organization. Walt Disney World property in Orlando is the same size as San Francisco. It's twice the size of New York City, Manhattan. It's 43 square miles. And on that property, 28,000 acre property, we had 100,000 employees. 75,000 of them we gave paychecks to. They're called Disney cast members. And 25,000 of them were contracted employees. You thought worked for us and didn't. The balloon seller on Main Street's been outsourced. The people who take your pictures around the parks now, it's been outsourced. You don't care. An average family will save 2 to 3 years to go to Disney. It's a very high expectation, very expensive investment. So how do we deliver on that promise? My job was to first get alignment, making sure all these different islands of excellence were aligned to the same goal. Right now, if you work in a department in healthcare, you work in a silo, you work in a fiefdom. It's called a division for a reason, because we're divided, sometimes even off hospital campus, right? We've got clinics, we've got imaging centers, we've got the cancer center. Sometimes it's on campus, but it's across the street. So alignment has to be the very first thing. And what we're going to talk about in September 1st is connecting people to purpose. And at Disney, 100,000 employees, cast members, as we call them, they were aligned towards 3 words. We create happiness. That's it. What your job tasks were, whether you're a lawyer in the legal department, you're the CEO of the company, you're selling balloons on Main Street, you're singing and dancing on stage, you work in our wastewater treatment plant, our hospital, our 5 fire departments. Doesn't matter where you work or what you do. Disney's a self-run city. It's pretty much like your city. The question is, what aligns us? What connects us? And it doesn't replace our mission, our vision, and our values. They're still there. Those are for the public. What's internal is the thread that pulls through all of us, through our hearts, that connects us. Doesn't matter where you work, what you do. Your job here is really to create happiness. And the most important word of those 3, we create happiness, is we. So it doesn't matter whether you're front of the house, on stage, backstage, in front of the guests, or behind the scenes taking care of other cast members. Everybody has to have that same role. And I found that in a performance organization, that people perform better knowing their why versus their what. Stop any employee in a hospital, Iris, and ask them what they do. And they'll tell you their title. I'm a OB doc. I'm a ICU nurse. I'm in respiratory, or I'll RT. I'm EVS. I'm SPD. I'm in patient accounting, PAT, pre-admission testing. They'll give you their department or their title, but they won't tell you their role. Stop any employee at Disney and say, what do you do here? I'm part of a team creating happiness. So that's number 1. Number 2, you asked about some powerful tools. The next thing that I'll tell you, you got to keep it simple. When you have 24 unions representing 100,000 employees, you got to keep it clear. It's got to be black or white. And one of the things that we have to strive for in healthcare is a culture of always, not a culture of sometimes. And you can't do a top-down initiative anymore. Just because you're the CEO or it's evidence-based, it doesn't matter. Unless they help create it, unless it's organic, it ain't gonna grow. It's, all these new initiatives is like AstroTurf. You can lay it down, looks beautiful at first, but it starts to tarnish over time because it doesn't get watered, nurtured, and grow. So one of the things I learned at Disney is to keep the tools simple. The first one I'll give you is a great way to humanize medicine, which is simply human, business, human. This is a simple mnemonic to remember. Human, business, human. Before I enter this patient's room, I'm going to enter the room on the human. I guess I should knock. Treat that patient in the bed like your mother, right? If that were your mom and you just walked in and she was half dressed or half undressed, would that be polite? No. And we have to remember that's not room 1312. It's their room, right? Patients don't change when they leave the supermarket or they leave a hotel or they leave their business and they get in a car accident. They're the same person in that patient room. But we would never do that in a hotel, Iris. Even though we have a master key, a housekeeper would never just walk into your room with you and your husband and your son and say, hey, you mind if I clean your toilet in the middle of the night? No, we would never do that. So why do we get the permission to do that in healthcare? Even though the door's open, you have to knock. Enter on the human. Make eye contact. Human. Smile appropriately if it's in the right mood. It's human again. Introduce yourself. Hi, my name is, and your role. Now we're in the business, right? And before you do your physical exam as a physician, resident, or student, or a nurse, or run that tourniquet and draw blood, before you do your business, you got to make sure you effectively connect with them on the human. Then you do your physical exam, or you do your blood draw, or you bring your food tray, or you do your bandage removal. You do your business. And then you leave the room, you exit on the human. And what we found with that tool, human first, business second, human third, that the outcome is trust. But when we skip human on one end or the other, we unintentionally erode the trust. So it's a very important aspect, because trust is an important part of the care plan. If they don't like us, they don't trust us. If they don't trust us, they don't comply with the care plan. Then they get readmitted in the next 30 days and we all lose. They're sicker and we pay because of the readmission limit. So that's the first tool. The second tool, well, that's the second tool, I guess, because the first tool would be alignment, right?
Right.
The second tool is human business human, or if you're a clinician, exclusively a surgeon, for instance, before you can cut, you got to make a connection, right? So human, clinical, human. The next tool I will tell you is under the business, because healthcare is so complicated. It's been around for 200 plus years, and we've been using acronyms and healthcare jargon and even French, right? Triage is French for prioritize. It's complicated. You've got to care out loud. So the last tool I will tell you that we'll talk about in our speech or our presentation in September in Las Vegas is caring out loud is exactly what it sounds like, right? You got to keep it simple. Is narrate what you're going to do before you do it. So the 3 steps of caring out loud is step 1, tell me what you're going to do to me before you're going to do it. Hi, my name is Nurse Jake. I'm here to blank, blank, blank. And the reason is blank, blank, blank. Great. I may not like that, but now I understand who you are and why you're here. Level 2 is tell me what you're doing while you're doing it. So if you skip level 1, or if you glide over level 1, at least tell me what you're doing while you're doing it. Okay. And level 3 is probably just as important as 1 and 2 is tell me what the next step in the process is. I'll give you an example and then I'll let you ask some questions. We know full well, I've been asking this question for 18 years. How long does it take after you draw blood out of a patient's arm in the emergency department, send it to the lab, and get results back? Do you know the answer, Iris? Take a guess.
48 hours.
No, it only takes about 45 minutes to 60 minutes. Very close, though. Very close, though. It does feel like 48 hours. No, it only takes 45 to 60 minutes. So what do we tell the patient? We don't tell them anything. There are 3 answers we tell the patient. 1 is we don't tell you anything. So how long is that going to be? For you, it's going to be 2 days. So if I come back in 45 minutes, I guess I exceeded your expectations. The second answer is I'll be back shortly, Iris. No timestamp. I'll be back shortly. How long is that? Well, that could be 15 minutes, 30 minutes. So I come back in 45 minutes, right? And the last answer is I'll be back soon. How long is that? One of the differences between Disney and healthcare is we're very intentional. We have a culture of intention. We treat our employees exactly how we want them to treat the guests. We don't even call them customers. We call them guests because we want them to treat them like visitors in our home. And I don't know about your home, Iris, and I don't even know if you're married or if you have a significant other, but usually men are not allowed in the guest bathroom in their own house. Why? Because those towels are for the guests, right? So we treat guests in my house better than we treat our own family members. That's exactly the philosophy we want you to have in the House of Disney, is treat them better than you would your own family members. So you have to be intentional. From this point on, it's going to be X amount of time. Why do we tell you that? Well, patients don't mind waiting, but they hate being kept in the dark. So we have to care out loud. Heck, if you go to Panera Bread, a little sandwich shop here in Orlando, they have 5 different coffees that have been made at 6 a.m. I get there at 9:30 in the morning. I wonder if the coffee's fresh. Well, they put little chalkboards underneath each coffee pot to tell you when it was brewed. Why do they do that? To let you know whether it's fresh or not. And if it's not fresh, I'll go back to the register. Hey, can you make another fresh pot? Of course we can. So they're including me in the customer experience. And I think we need to do a better job including the patient in the patient experience. Caring out loud and human business human work together to humanize healthcare, not just putting the patient first, but really cluing them into this foreign language we have in triage and discharge and NICUs and PICUs.
Everything, I know. So I think it sounds, makes sense, right? And it sounds powerful to make that connection. And what do you think the challenge is? And maybe why it's so hard for this transformation to take place in healthcare.
Go up to any medical surgical floor right now and go visit your family member. Let's say your dad's in the hospital. I don't know if he's with us or not, but let's just say he's in a hospital, and you walk in and say, "Hey, honey, how's it going, Dad?" He says, "I'm scared to go to sleep." "Why, Dad?" "They're so short-staffed here." Well, how do you know that? Because they tell me. Why do we tell the patient that we're short-staffed, right? Why do we do that? Because we are. Many times we're short-staffed. We've got traveling nurses and so on. Does that create peace of mind for patients? So number one, they don't have a true north. They don't have a compass that's pointing towards our connecting point. So my favorite true north is the one I always wear, even though it's 5 years old. We created for Dignity Health in California, which is 5 different medical groups and 32 hospitals. And it says simply, we unite healing and human kindness. Healing is clinical excellence. Human kindness is service excellence. We do that so that we can create peace of mind for every patient every time through a culture of yes. Nobody's going to remember all of that. But you can remember 5 words, just like at Disney, you can remember we create happiness. By not having that purpose statement, you're just another hospital, you're just another nurse, you're just another clinic. And you're just another patient, your dad is. So we would never tell you that we're short-staffed. So I think one of the challenges we have is we're very busy. We're very busy people. Even during COVID, same-day surgery and a lot of surgery, elective surgeries postponed. So we floated our staff up to different units, even the COVID unit where they haven't been a nurse on a floor for years. How much fear and anxiety did that create when you just have to go up to a bed shift report and go, here you go. You haven't been on a respirator in years as far as a clinician. Or we flex you home. We don't have enough work for you. Go home. Hopefully they paid you, but what if they didn't? And what if you did work on that floor? Now you're worried you're taking that disease and those clothes home with you. You got to strip down in your garage. You got to shower in the guest shower, right? Just so you don't carry this back to your family. So it's number one, people are busy. Number two, I think we're short-staffed. Number three, we don't write this stuff down. We don't have a departmental playbook that's not clinical. What I mean by that is we've got a standard operating procedure, Iris. You know, if you go to a women and baby floor or OBGYN floor, you can open a playbook. Let's just say it's a 2-inch binder. You'll see how to intubate, how to do a C-section, how to do an epidural, how to do a vaginal birth. You'll see all that in there. Where's our quiet at night strategy? Where's our way do we connect with the mom? What happens when that mom doesn't have a husband? She has a female wife. What happens when she's an independent person who had artificial insemination? Do we have different plays for the playbook? So one of the things we had at Disney for my at least dozen of my last dozen years at Disney was every department had a playbook to talk about the ways we're continuing to raise the bar and making those connectivities. And not just for our patients, but for each other. And so I think when you feel like you're short-staffed, you don't have time to be human. You don't have time to knock. And those are the consequences when you're feeling stressed about running from OR to OR or patient room to patient room.
Right. And so I think that connection you're making is that, so obviously if we're busy and we're stressed in that setting, that's going to translate into what the patient's feeling and their experience.
Yeah.
It goes both ways.
It's a domino effect.
Yeah. So do you think with these types of tools and the playbook, it kind of gives practitioners more permission or empowers them to be more human in that setting? And I think you're right. I think sometimes not only are there roadblocks or pitfalls just day to day, but I sometimes think there's this professional veneer we think we have to wear. And, you know, there might be some shyness around showing care. I'm not sure. And yet they're care providers, right?
Right.
So in your engagements, when you work with companies and you kind of help them diagnose and assess how they're doing, how they're performing with showing care, is it true that you use GoPro cameras to help them to illuminate what's happening?
First of all, it's hard to have empathy when you haven't been a patient yourself. It's hard to do it when you're literally working 12-hour shifts 5 or 7 days a week. So the one thing that we do is we try to bring the patient's perspective. So one of the things we do is to really understand what it's like to be a patient or a visitor in your hospital, because you're desensitized. You don't see your dirty laundry in the hallway. You don't see the trash on the floor. Or you don't see the signage is all acronyms or French foreign language words. We strap a GoPro camera on the handle of a wheelchair. I'll dress it a Johnny, and I'll get one of your transportation folks push me around the whole hospital. We'll put it to video, and maybe at the conference I'll show you a clip or two inside my presentation. And what that does is it really gives you an idea what it's like to be 37 inches tall, like a child walking in the hospital. But also, it's amazing what you can see through the lens of a camera that you didn't see at 5'11" walking through the hospital every day. Number two, we'll also strap it to a gurney. So, or I'll put a GoPro camera on my forehead, and I will be a patient in same-day surgery being wheeled from pre-op to op to post-op to PACU, or PACU to post-op, and then out the door back to the parking lot. And it's amazing what you can see, not only in the hospital four walls, but how hard it is to find a parking spot. How hard it is to find valet parking. Do they charge? Do they not charge? When I actually get the valet parking, how do I get up to the OR check-in area? Or pre-admission testing is sometimes 4 blocks away. So it's a great way to get empathy just through the lens of the camera. Sometimes I'll even, we do a pride audit. What's the pride of the organization? So a couple things I check in a pride audit. My staff and I put on jeans and T-shirts, and we hide GoPro cameras in planters, and we'll put trash on the ground. Just an empty coffee cup, styrofoam cup, and a napkin in it, 3 feet from a trash can, and watch and count. We'll videotape your kneecaps down to your shoes. How many employees walk over, around, or kick the trash before one employee picks up the trash? And unfortunately, the national average is 37. So we've been doing that for 18 years, and the national average is 37. There's only one hospital was 1. Okay. In other words, as soon as it went down on the ground, people dove for it. And that was Oklahoma Heart Hospital in Oklahoma City. Those people read the Disney Ran Your Hospital book, and they just love trash. So the other hospital I can't name, it's an academic medical center, 99 employees, 99, because the culture was, that's not my job. And the last piece is eye contact, smile, and name tag. How many employees can you literally see their name tag, and do you get eye contact and smile? Just walking past 100 employees, how many of them proactively look at you and smile at you? So that gives us a temperature, a pulse, if you will, of the culture, and gives us a jumping off point. And then we'll redo it every 6 months. We'll come back and secretly do it again and see how you do.
Greatly. Okay, very good. So, making that link, and it strikes me that there's something very powerful about seeing names, having that recognition, and the auditory nature of being demonstrative in what we do. And, I think we've chatted about this a little bit, but, it's there, I feel like there's a response that happens between the patient and the caregiver that removes worry and doubt. And so I thought you could talk to us a little bit about that, and then, how that's tracked and monitored, because, we would think that if these methods and this approach is being implemented and used, that would probably translate into better patient satisfaction scores.
Well, we talked about it before. This is not rocket science. It's just hard work. I mean, nobody wants to follow a guy like me into battle. I mean, if you imagine I'm Mel Gibson dressed as Braveheart, and I'm lined up all my soldiers, and I say, all right, men, of course, most of it's women. All right, women, we're going to do small incremental change over a long period of time. Who's with me? I'm going to look back, and they're going to still be standing there, right? Nobody wants to do small incremental change over a long period of time. But the secret sauce of all of this that you'll get in my presentation is basically you got to get the employees involved in the process to think it's their idea. They're smart people. They're dedicated. They made an oath to this, right? This is their mission, not just their job, right? This is their calling. So you got to give them simple tools so they can be authors, because authorship then leads to ownership, because they created it. And then ownership leads to mutual accountability when the boss is not around. And you OR managers, you're not around. I've been in a lot of ORs, right? You're managing budgets, equipment, call-offs, right? The bed board. I might find you by the bed board, and I sometimes will find you in your office, but most of the time you're in meetings, and we know you're doing battle for us, but who's managing when you're not around? They've got to manage themselves. And so you talked before about that trust bond relationship between a pre-op nurse or a surgical nurse or a surgeon, the little things that we do is we start the surgery. I'll give you an example. How many times have you been to a safety huddle? 7 a.m. every day, the hospital has a timeout. Everybody in the hospital, all managers go to a safety huddle. Do they practice human business human? Heck no. We get right to work. The leader of the meeting says, OR, 14 surgeries, 22 yesterday, blah, 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 blah. Great. ED, basically how many beds are you at full and how many beds were there last night? And we just rattle off numbers. And we say, all right, we're done. And we all go to our meeting. How about good morning? How about hello? How about does anybody have anything to celebrate? Yes, Iris? Oh, my 12-year-old son just kicked a goal last night, his first time the whole season, and their team won the game. Oh, congratulations. Jake, yes, I just got recertified in respiratory therapy. Been a long-term goal of mine. Oh, congratulations. It takes 1 minute to do celebrations. 1 minute, whether it's business or it's home, right? We're at work whether we are at home. So why not celebrate? Because what we do for our employees, they will do for our patients. Treat them as human. Make that connection with them, manager, first. And here's a little tip for you. Get a little personal inventory for all your employees, totally voluntary. What's their nickname? What's their favorite thing to do when they're not at work? What's their favorite candy, their favorite hot drink, their favorite cold drink? What do they like to do when they're not at work? They like to take their 12-year-old son to the movies. Well, when Iris does something special, works an extra shift or does something special, not only do I give her an atta-girl note, but I give her 2 AMC movie tickets or 3 if she's married, right? Little things. So now she's going to treat the patient exactly like that. And if you don't, the patient doesn't like us. They don't trust us. They don't comply with the care plan. They're not loyal, and they're not telling all their friends and family. You go to TripAdvisor, right? Every hotel in America, if it's not being reviewed on TripAdvisor or restaurant, we don't go. I want to see what you think, Iris, of that restaurant or hotel. Well, now TripAdvisor is starting to cover hospitals and all the other review sites because we listen to the people we care about.
Mm-hmm. I love that call to action, that it only takes a minute to kind of have that mindset focus and be very deliberate.
I got one little line for your staff, and especially if you're going in to transfer a patient in their inpatient room to a gurney to bring them down to the OR. Hi, Iris. My name is Jake. I'm from transportation. I'm going to take you down to the operating room now. I'm just curious, Iris, what do you like to do when you're not in the hospital? And just listen. It takes 30 to 60 seconds to make that connection. Oh, well, I got a 12-year-old son and we're constantly going to soccer practice. Oh, really? I have a 12-year-old daughter. She's in gymnastics. Your son's in. All right, now we're making a connection and I'm pushing you down the hall and we're talking about something else. Well, I'm a jogger too. Oh, I'm a runner too. We're making a connection. So I'm not just a transporter. I'm your transporter. I'm not just a hospital. You are my hospital. And I'm not just going to talk about the surgeon who saved my life. I kind of expected that. Unless it's a life-altering disease, the procedure, I kind of expected that. But what I didn't expect is a transporter to be nice, a front desk person to be nice, a valet parker person to be nice. We're all part of the care team, but we're not yet because we haven't pulled that thread through yet because we haven't created that thread. What do we do there? At Disney, we create happiness. At Dignity Health, we unite healing and human kindness. What do you do? Stop any employee and ask them, and you'll get, well, if you have 1,200 employees, you might get 1,200 different answers. And that's the shame.
It is, you're right. So I think that might be a great note to land on and to encourage people to make that connection. And I already feel connected. We're doing these scenarios. It already feels better. It feels warmer, feels more authentic. I'm ready to go make more connections today.
Excellent.
And I think to our listeners and our OR managers and leaders out there, take this challenge. Any guiding tips, any final words to help them get there?
Yeah, one last tip. Look on our screens right now. You're going to see Iris's name and Jake Poore's name. Why do they do that? Because that's a courtesy, right? These are things that we don't have in healthcare. It's called a name tag. We have an ID badge. It's on a lanyard. It's around our neck. And 60% of the time it's flipped over. I don't know who you are. And in the OR, you scrub in. So do what they do in Australia. In Australia, in the surgery centers, they take masking tape. They write anesthesiologist, Jake, surgeon, Lori, surgical tech nurse, Jim, and they tape it to their hairnet or their skull cap, just so when they're leaning over you, you know who they are. And of course, instead of just doing a timeout for safety, they narrate out loud, we're going to do a timeout in just a moment. What that means is, and they care out loud. So if they can do it, by God, down under, we can do it here in the great country of the United States of America. So that's my one tip I'll leave you with.
I love it. And if any of our listeners are up for that challenge, we would love to see photos. Please submit them at info@oremanager.com if you want to share taking that initiative, maybe showing your name tags, the masking tape on the forehead, whatever it is. We'd love to see how you're being more deliberate and human in your patient care. Jake, I want to thank you. This has been so illuminating and a lot of fun. We want to thank you again for continuing to champion and advance healthcare and the patient experience. This is just a sneak peek. We'll hear more from Jake at our OR Manager Conference this fall in Las Vegas. We hope to see you there. And we want to thank you again for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you. You did a great job, Iris. Appreciate being here.
Bye.